We'll start with the special counsel investigating President Biden for his handling of classified documents will not bring charges against the president. That's the conclusion. Robert Hur wrote in his report released yesterday, quote, our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. He goes on to write that the president's actions, quote, present serious risks to national security. But then later in the report, Hur conceded that the evidence, quote, does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The special counsel wrote that the president could also portray himself at trial as an elderly man with a poor memory who would be sympathetic to a jury. Hur's description...
A neurologist and a lawyer.
Let me just finish, but I agree.
Well, but we kind of need to stop there. A neurologist...
You're talking about Hur.
Hur, from Trump University.
No.
And... I've got to stop right here. I know we want to go on and finish this report, but I've just got to start. Ken Dilanian, so bizarre, and there's so many people that immediately heard these random conclusions, irrelevant conclusions, politically charged, Trump-like ramblings. Who, first of all, wondered why in the world he would put that in a report, his neurological assessment of Joe Biden, and secondly, why Merrick Garland would release garbage like that in the Justice Department report. Can you give us any insight? Because it sure sounds like James Comey in 2016, who July couldn't indict Hillary Clinton legally, so he decided to hold a press conference and indict her politically.
Joe, I understand where you're coming from on that. I think a lot of people feel that way, but let me give you the explanation that I have heard from Justice Department officials and some insight into why that was in there, though it did seem gratuitous to a lot of people. If Rob Hur is saying, I have evidence that Joe Biden willfully retained classified information, then in fact, he didn't just find those documents in 2022, as we all thought. He actually found them in 2017, and he's recorded saying that to his ghostwriter. So why isn't he charging him? Well, he has to explain that. So the explanation is Joe Biden said he didn't remember. He was recorded saying, I found classified documents in my house in Virginia to the ghostwriter. He's recorded disclosing classified information to the ghostwriter, according to this report. But he says he forgot that. So Rob Hur has to explain that, in fact, the larger context here is that Mr. Biden has forgotten a lot of things. He forgot the dates that he was vice president, according to this report. He forgot at one point during the interview when his son died. He forgot a key figure in the Afghanistan debate that he cared a lot about, which side of the debate he was on. And so Rob Hur felt like he had no choice, I'm told, but to lay out in detail the faults he found with Joe Biden's memory and explain how that would be perceived in front of a jury, because he's going to have to go up to Congress and justify to a bunch of angry Republicans why Donald Trump is being charged with retaining classified documents, but Joe Biden isn't. So that's the explanation. A lot of people may not like it. Maybe people thought he went too far. And you know, I've obviously heard from people who speak for Mr. Biden who say, you know, look, how did Rob Hur evaluate his memory in a 5-hour interview? I've been with him, you know, for years, and I think his memory is a lot better than that. That's a fair point, I think. You know, Rob Hur is ultimately going to have to go to Congress, and he's going to have to answer for this. But that's the explanation.
Well, I mean, it's so gratuitous. And John Heilemann, something else that jumped out is, again, the word willfully, that he willfully retained the documents. Then you go a couple of hundred pages in, it goes, well, it's natural to assume that Mr. Biden put the Afghanistan documents in the box on purpose and knew they were there. Quote, there is, in fact, a shortage of evidence on these points. So 200 pages early, he goes, he willfully. And then 200 pages later, said, well, we actually don't have evidence on that point. And he did that a couple times throughout here. It certainly seemed like a politically charged document. It, you know, used to be pre-James Comey you would either indict somebody or you wouldn't indict somebody. But now in the political sphere, again, James Comey can't indict Hillary Clinton during a presidential election legally. So what does he do? He holds a press conference and indicts her politically. Same thing happened yesterday. He didn't have any evidence. There's so many, and we're going to go through these. It is the one thing that he did right. He talked about the distinctions between Donald Trump, who lied, stole, lied, hid, obstructed, lied again, had his lawyers lie under oath, continued to lie, continued to hide, continued to obstruct, told his employees to lie, on and on and on. Joe Biden turned it over immediately. Of course, I don't expect liars on other news channels or liars in other parties to actually tell the truth. I don't expect them to do that. But there are those clear distinctions. But even here, though, John Heilemann, you have a situation where he says time and time again, we don't really have any evidence that he willfully took and retained this evidence.
Right. Well, first, Joe, I'll say that literally before we started the program, I was saying to Chuck Rosenberg sitting here, can you explain to me how this is different from what Jim Comey did in what we think of as in 2016 as Comey won his first intercession in the election, in that case you were referring to in July, I think of 2016, when he did what you just said. And I like you, am old enough to remember when prosecutors either charged someone and issued a charging document, or they issued a declension, and the declension was one sentence, which says we decline to prosecute. Chuck, I think, is going to talk about something that I don't know as much about in the detail of it, is how the difference between back in those days when we had the independent counsel statute and what we have now, where we have special counsels and what the regulations are and what they have to do. I will say that that there's no doubt in my mind that that this special prosecutor could have written the same report without using these words: elderly man with a poor memory. I'm like you, I'm a simple country journalist. I can find a lot of different ways to say this.
Yeah, you know what?
Without
I'm a
saying
simple
something
country
like that.
lawyer.
Yeah.
John, I'm a simple country lawyer, and I know. What's the headline? What should the headline from this report be? Not indicted.
Not guilty. Right.
Not the evidence to indict him. Yeah. It's not there. And the clear differences, as he wrote, between Trump and Biden. That should be.
And I would have thought, Joe.
Wait, hold on, John. Hold on, John. Do you think that this guy is so naive? You think this guy is so stupid? Do you guys think this guy is so clueless that he didn't know, by putting words in that Donald Trump would love for him to put in there, that wasn't going to be the headline for the New York Post, that wouldn't be on every... The guy knew. He's a Trumper who knew.
Right.
So why in the world would the Justice Department allow that dicta to be in there? It's gratuitous. Well, and he knows it's gratuitous, and it was bad faith. It was bad faith that he did it, and it was even worse judgment that the Justice Department allowed that garbage to be released.